He was sick, very sick. Multiple sclerosis, bipolar disorder, chronic pain, migraine after migraine. For 38 years, Baba Sam Shelley lived a life most of us wouldn't choose, and few could endure. He was told it was incurable, unfixable, just the way it was going to be. But then something changed. He didn't find a miracle pill. He didn't stumble into a groundbreaking treatment. No, he found something far more unexpected: stillness. Through meditation and inner peace, Baba Sam experienced something doctors couldn't quite explain. The illnesses disappeared, the cane gone, the medicine unnecessary. Now he's on a mission to tell the world that a diagnosis isn't a destiny, that healing, real healing, comes from within. I'm Scott Allen. This is the Enlightened Life Podcast, and if you think you've heard stories of transformation before, just wait. Baba Sam, welcome to the Enlightened Life Podcast. You've been through a lot, decades of pain, and the kind of struggle most people can barely imagine. And yet, here you are, and you're healthy, whole, and ready to share what you've learned. You know, it's a rare thing to turn a life like that around, and even rarer to come out with the kind of wisdom and peace that you carry. So I'm really glad you're here. I know this conversation is going to be something special. So thank you so much for joining me.
It's a real pleasure to be here, Scott. Really an honor. I'm looking forward to our little
Yeah,
conversation here.
me as well. You you lived with illness for decades. What was it like to carry that weight around every single day, knowing your body was failing you, but your mind was still searching for answers?
Yeah, that's really what it was. The mind was searching for answers, and there really was none out there in the world. You're constantly bombarded with the incurable stories. You read all the medical literature on multiple sclerosis, bipolar, whatever the condition may be, and it's always with a negative bias. They're always saying these are the worst things that can happen. And of course, the mind attaches to that, and that becomes part of your reality. Oh, I'm taking this medicine. These are the side effects that come along with this medicine. And your body will so cling to, oh, so I'm supposed to be feeling fatigued. I'm supposed to be feeling this from the medicine. And then you're already naturally fatigued from multiple sclerosis and everything else. It's really a lot of burden that the body really begins to carry because the mind is addicted. This pain body is always grabbing onto all this negativity. And if we're constantly surrounded in negativity, well, how is your life going to be molded? Because I know when I was really going through a lot of stuff, I would wake up every day like, what else is going to go wrong today? So when you're always focused on the wrong, life goes in that direction. I was always asking questions like, am I going to be able to walk today? Can I see today? Will I have a migraine today? These are my real fears that I had every day. But when you're consumed in fear, life just goes in that direction that is not supportive to living a happy, enjoyable life.
So at what point did you realize that this path that you were on just wasn't working, relying on doctors, medications, and treatments? They just weren't giving you any hope or healing.
Yeah, but I was still looking at the doctors and the medicine because that was my world. I wasn't really into the spirituality, this alternate health. It was always like, that's woo-woo, that's out there. And it just sort of wasn't really my world. And one of the things that I remember when I was in my 20s, bipolar, suicidal, in the hospital, so I didn't kill myself, it was my uncle came in to my hospital. He's an evangelical pastor. And he came into the hospital room and he tried to cast a demon from my head. So that did not help. That actually closed some windows with
Yeah.
spirituality and religion because suddenly I'm possessed. I have these demons in my head or something like that, and it was just not supportive. It was really by no chance you could say that I found the way out because I was always just in this medical world of doctors, medicine, diagnosis, and that diagnosis did become my destiny because everything I was reading was in reinforcing that I'm going to be stuck with multiple sclerosis forever. I'm not going to be able to walk. Bipolar, the arthritis, the migraines, everything was just going to stay in place because I was just consumed in this negativity that I call, the head trash. We really get
Yeah.
this head trash and this pain body built up from that head trash. So it's really was finding a different way out. And the way I found my way out was partly by chance, but ultimately there is no chance or luck. It's a matter of to see that life unfolds as it needs to unfold for our spiritual growth. But I know this doesn't make sense for a lot of listeners. So we have to go back to when I had multiple sclerosis. I had a lot of fatigue. It was difficult to walk. My vision was really poor. So it was really challenging time. So I remember at the end of the day, I would just be completely wiped out, exhausted. So I'd sit down in front of the TV and it was a couch potato. Well, one of the things I used to like to watch was ghost hunting shows, but I didn't know if it was real or fake. It was just entertainment, something to watch. But then I saw a tweet from the Ghost Hunter, the show that I was watching, Ghost Hunters, watching that. And I was like, oh, there's an event here in Philadelphia. I can go to that. I can get a room nearby because I know the fatigue is going to be bad. And it's also in the summertime, so I'll need my cooling vest with the MS because the body really shuts down with heat, with multiple sclerosis. I'll get my cane, so I had to get all my gear together to go to this event, and I did that. Well, I know it was only going to be good for even with all my gear for about an hour, maybe a little over an hour. So I did some research on, Fort Mifflin and Philadelphia, and it's like, okay, so apparently, if these ghosts are real, I'm going to have an experience in the casemates. If there's anything to be witnessed, it'll be in the casemate. So they had all these groups go into different areas, and I was like, nope, I'm going to the group with the casemates. I'm not sticking with my group. I'm going over there. So I was in this area of the casemates. There really wasn't much happening. Then one of the experiences, a few things that happened. The one experience that really got my attention, I'm sitting there on a bench in the dark, really not much is happening. And I just felt somebody sitting next to me that didn't have a body. They were just
Mm.
somebody just sat there next to me that like, had a body. Like then I just felt this overwhelming sense of dread come over me. Like, okay, that's interesting. So there's these ghosts are real.
And that's hard to describe, isn't it? You tell somebody you found someone next, and trust me, I get it, right? But you have someone next to you that doesn't have a body. Like people think you're lost your mind. What do you mean? What does that feel like? How do you even feel that? What you do?
Yeah, yeah. If you're just sitting on a bench, you can tell someone sit next to you.
Yeah,
It was like that same thing. You felt someone just
yeah.
sit next to you, and it's like, oh, that's weird.
Hmm.
So these ghosts are real. So what this led me to, I was like, oh, well, who speaks to ghosts? Oh, mediums. So let me go read a book from a medium. And I was reading this book from Medium. I think it might have been Alison Dubois. I'm not quite sure. It could have been her book that I was reading. I don't remember. It was a while ago. But in the book, eventually they talked about meditation and how to use meditation to get into their space for this communication. And one of the things they talked about was the benefits of meditation.
Hmm.
And one of the benefits of meditation was inner peace. And like, I need inner peace. I am
Yeah.
so stressed, so overwhelmed with life. So I had no clue that meditation would create healing. I was just focused on like meditation creates inner peace. I need some inner peace. So this book talked literally a page and a half on meditation. It was very, very small section. So it was just basically sit quietly and relax is basically the instructions. But I was under the impression that when you sit in meditation, the mind stops thinking. So what this got me into, so the mind, I was sitting there relaxing, so the mind starts thinking. I'd be like, oh, stop thinking. Mind thinking, stop thinking. Then after about 3, 4 days, I'm like, wait a second, wait a second. If I'm aware of my thoughts, I'm not my thought. This was a huge realization for me to see that I had
Say
thoughts,
that
but I
again.
wasn't
If you're aware of your thoughts,
thoughts, then I'm not my thoughts. If I can witness my
yeah.
thoughts, because I realized I was a thought chasing a thought. So that was a huge epiphany to realize, wait, I'm aware of my thoughts. I'm a witness to my thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. This was a huge realization because
Hmm.
I took my thoughts as a source of truth in my 20s and nearly killed myself twice because of that mental darkness. So now I had this awareness, wait a second, I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. So my next question was, well, if I'm not my thoughts, then who am I?
Yeah.
Before there's all of that identity, personality, I have bipolar, I have MS. So I was completely identified with my diagnosis. So then I was sitting with that question, but my meditation practice was very simple. I was sitting 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. That was my whole practice. 5 minutes twice a day was my practice. Very simple, just sitting there quietly. But now what would happen when mind would start thinking? I wouldn't say stop thinking anymore. Like, oh, where are my feet? I bring my attention back to my feet. So that was my practice. So now, but I was sitting with the question before I would go in meditation, like, well, who am I? So I didn't sit with this question of who am I? And I was doing that for about, maybe about 2 weeks. I was sitting with that who am I question. And this one evening, I just heard a voice say, perfect spirit. I'm like, that's it. My spirit is perfect. It's simply the body and mind that are damaged. And it's really hard to describe. When I was just sitting there, I just felt this great sense of peace come over me. Then I just had a knowing that all was well. And I just knew all my health challenges were over. In that instant,
And you knew. And you
I just,
knew.
I knew it was over. Well, it took the body some of the time to catch up with that reality, but I just knew it was all over. And the body started to recover from that day. And then I was just getting these either hearing the voice or my intuition, or sometimes just the feeling. And it'd be like, okay, like one of the feelings I had was like to do yoga. I just had an impulse to go do yoga.
Yeah.
So I didn't, the mind no longer had power over me. So the mind was on to all the stories. You don't have flexibility, you don't have balance, you can't do yoga. The mind was in all these stories. I just ignored it. I just trusted this voice or this knowing that I need to go do yoga. So the next day I signed up for a monthly unlimited card at a yoga studio. I just did it.
That's awesome.
So 6 months after doing yoga, no more cane. I was no longer heat intolerant. Like the body was really coming back. I was tapering off medication. I was really, the body was really starting to make a really strong recovery. And within 14 months, no cane, no heat intolerance, no medicine, no symptoms. The body was completely recovered within
Wow.
14 months of
So
hearing that voice.
so let me bring back. Meditation is really where it started, right? Why do you think the medical community dismisses healing practices like this? Um, what do you think? Is it do you feel that it threatens their authority or financial profit? What is the reasoning behind it? Because I'm
Yeah,
sure your doctors didn't understand, well, how is this happening, especially MS, you know?
right, right. Yeah, because they're just not really not taught that, that we were talking before the show is that doctors, they're just treating symptoms. They're not looking for root causes. Like the doctors would never ask me, like, how's your stress level? What's going on? Besides my psychiatrist for the bipolar, but it was still medication. He never told me, well, have you ever tried meditation or a mindfulness exercise to to get you to settle the mind or anything like that? And no, that wasn't his reality. And I can look back today when I was suicidal in my 20s, he never once asked me, why are your thoughts the truth?
Yeah,
Because he too was his thoughts. He didn't have that
sure.
separation.
So your healing was spontaneous, and some might call it miraculous. Uh, Others might say it's coincidence or even wishful thinking. But how do you respond to people? How do you respond to skeptics when they say it's nothing more than, let's say, a placebo effect?
Yeah, it's just really hard to explain. Like I recently posted about this, like you could have told the old sick May that meditation will do this for you, that yoga will help you with this. And I would have discounted it because I was completely wrapped up in the medicine world. It was really the pivotal moment for me was ghost hunting because I needed something to shift my reality. I
Hmm.
needed this because I was always the type that I had to see it to believe it. So now suddenly I have somebody sitting next to me that doesn't have a body. So Dr. Wayne Dwyer called these quantum shifts, where we have these moments in times where reality just shifts and pivots dramatically. So it was that curiosity on my part to, oh, somebody's sitting next to me. Isn't that fun? And just ignore it. Like, no, I was curious. So the ghost hunting with curiosity allowed that door to be open. Without that curiosity, say, hey, is there something more to this? Then nothing changes. Because when I was in this medicine doctor world, I was only reading about my ailments and the medicine and things, but I wasn't exploring like, why am I taking this medicine forever? Why is this incurable? Just because they say it's incurable, well, why is it incurable for me? And that's why I want individuals to see today that a diagnosis is simply information. It's it's not your destiny unless you allow it to be your destiny. So it's really about being curious and saying, "Oh, they're saying that I'm incurable with this." I've been working with a lot of Parkinson's patients lately, and I get them into this deep space when I'm doing this inner healer work with them to awaken their own inner healer, and I get them into this deep space and like, "Has your spirit ever told you you're incurable?" And they're like, "No." My spirit, my soul has never once said I'm incurable. Because we have to remember, like it says in the Course of Miracles, that there's no degree of difficulties within miracles, that we are spirit, that we are soul, that we are consciousness. The same energy that created the universe is within us. But we don't know this because we're not taught this. But the yogis have been telling us this for 4,000 years. And but we've been hijacked in a way with all this negativity and all this bias.
Yeah. Does belief have a part in this? In other words, if you have someone who doesn't believe but says, "I'll humor you. I'll humor you. Let me work with you." Does it ultimately the belief in what's happening help, or do you not really have to believe?
Now we have to realize the mind can go either way. It can either assist with healing or keep the illness in place. It can go either way. So that's what I tell people. If you have the best medicine, the best doctors, the best surgeons, whatever it is, say you're going for a surgery for something and you're absolutely convinced this isn't going to work for me, it's not going to work for you. But if you have a glimmer of
Right.
hope, like, I'm going to have this surgery, I'm going to function better after that, then that little bit of belief allows that opening for healing. But if you go to any situation saying, this absolutely will not work for me, then it will not. Your mind will shut that down.
So I want to ask you too, and we talked about this before the show. There's really a lot of debate about alternative healing, and some call it dangerous, irresponsible, especially if people reject traditional treatment. So, how do you balance inner healing, encouraging inner healing without discouraging medical care?
Yeah, it's really finding that balance for you. Sometimes the body needs help. We have to understand. So it's always about getting quiet, getting still. Usually we're very reactive. We hear something, we pick up to it, we attach. We need to stop, pause, and say, how do we respond to this situation? This doctor's giving me all this information. Does it resonate with you or not? If it's resonating with you, like, oh yeah, it feels like this is right for me. The body needs a little help. Let's do this. Like if you broke your left arm, yeah, the body can heal that fine, but without help, it's going to go crooked. It needs to be set and needs to be
Yeah.
so it goes back straight. So we need that little assistance. So it's always finding that balance, that middle way where you're acknowledging you, the deeper essence, and then the material, and then finding this middle way for you, your recipe forward. Because you're the one that's living in this body. Ultimately, you know what's best for you, and others are giving you information. Now, how do you respond to the information? Most of us are just reacting to that, not taking it in, absorbing, and say, okay, that's a lot of information. What part of this is right for me? And finding my way forward. So it's always about, finding your way forward because no one has your answers except you.
Right. Right. So your inner healing school encourages people to take responsibility for their healing. What if they don't? Are there circumstances where they just don't, or that their illness is just too far progressed or too involved to really work?
No, that's I've told individuals before that you are spirit, that there's no degree of difficulties and miracles. I was once called in on a cancer patient. When I walked into the room, I saw literally she was days away from death. I worked with her for 90 minutes because she had all this negativity around her, all these stories, and her body was confirming that because it was stage 4 breast cancer metastasized into the bones. She was really bad shape, but we worked together for 90 minutes and she lived for another 5 years because we were able to clear that negativity. It's like she reached a milestone. She got to see her son graduate high school. And once her
Wow.
son graduated high school, then she's like, okay, I'm done. I can leave now.
So she
But
wasn't healed, and she wasn't healed to the extent that, everything's gone, the tumors are gone, the cancer's gone. I'm going to live to be 80, but it encouraged it created a little more longevity for her.
right, creating more longevity
Yeah.
because you saw that there. But I think she was doing really, really well. I don't know what happened because she didn't really keep up and keep in touch with me this so I can see what was going on. So maybe I could assist to her because she showed up for one of my talks, like on the 2, 3 years after I saw in the hospital, and you would never know she had cancer. She looked like a pillar of health. She looked like how she had absolutely no issues. So like I said, it really seemed like, oh, my son graduated. I'm fine. I can leave now. But I think she, like when I saw her like 2, 3 years later, she looked like the pillar of health. You would never know anything was wrong with her.
I mean, that's incredible. It's beautiful, you know. So when your body began to heal, how did it affect your relationships, or even, let's say the view of the world around you? Did others start to see and believe when they watched you?
Yeah, so what it mostly did was people were asking like, how did you do this? How'd you do this? How'd you do this? That was my motivation for writing my first book. So that's why I wrote my first book was I Don't Dwell, because constantly I was dwelling in thoughts and I no longer was dwelling in thoughts. So that wrote that first book to explain that, but life shifted completely. The marriage ended, the corporate job ended, everything was sort of falling away that was no longer serving me. Like my ex-wife, she was still in that victim mentality that life was against her and she was still in that very much that negative world and the medicine, the doctors and all that. She couldn't fathom my healing. It just didn't make sense because she was totally locked up in the medicine and would look at my meditation practice as something that doesn't work, or even though it was physically healing, it wasn't part of her reality. She'd never had that quantum shift or that shift in reality, so it just didn't work for her. And then I was working a corporate job, even though I was very sick, I was working a corporate job and a pharmaceutical company. So they were completely understanding if I need time off or whatever.
Sure.
It was the perfect job for me to work. But one day I saw these two managers arguing over some issue, some problem. And I was off on the side laughing at them, like, why are you taking this so serious? The world isn't going to end.
Hmm.
So that's a
Right.
shift in my reality now. I don't take things so seriously. I just
That's
realized
wonderful.
the mind's just we have to realize that right and wrong, good and bad are all from our mental perspective. So there's no ultimate truth from the mind because it's just all based on opinions and perspective that, like when I talked to Dr. Gabor Mate about my healing, and he asked me all these questions, and he basically summed it up that I stopped taking the mind as a source of truth. And that's, I think, what real people really need to do is stop taking your mind as the source of truth. The truth
Yeah.
is deeper within you, that spirit, the soul, your aliveness in the body. That's your deeper essence. And if this doesn't make sense to you, realize you had a toddler body, a teenager body, a young adult body. You had
Yeah.
thousands of bodies throughout your life, but the one who sees, the one who hears, the one who touches, that has never changed. That's
Yeah.
our deeper essence.
So MS, typically, we're told it's not curable.
Hmm.
And, of course, there are cancers that aren't curable and that kind of thing that you
Yeah.
can live with them, and maybe the, medicine or whatever it is can prolong your life. How is it the case for you? Is it really gone? I don't know if there's a genetic marker, if there's a test for it, or is it just in remission type of a thing?
Well, if you look at my doctors, and this was 12 years. Yeah, it's been actually 13 years, actually been 13, maybe 14 years since I last saw my doctors. All my conditions they put in remission because to them there was no getting rid of it. They put everything in
Yeah,
remission. But that's been for 13 years now with no medicine and
it's
no
incredible.
nothing. So it's just a matter of like we have to remember that we are consciousness spirit and all things are possible when we operate and live from this place. That's why I was talking to people who do advanced Parkinson's, and they are making interesting progress when they start coming back into who they are and finding their balance. So who knows what's going to happen with them? But the ultimate thing is the body may be unwell, but we're here to enjoy life. So we're enjoying life to the best of our ability. And the body will usually catch up to that enjoyment, that energy that we're putting out there. That I was always in a negative bias. When you put to a positive bias, life works out better because you were always miserable,
Sure.
depressed, and pain. And it's really hard when you're in pain to find that happiness, but you need to find a way to turn it around. That what's that thing that you do like to enjoy? Like there's that story that somebody was sick with cancer or something. They used to watch comedy shows all the time and to stay in a place of laughter and joy, and things turn from them. So it's always finding that thing that can bring you into more of a positive or uplifted mood. Because if you're miserable, you're in a lot of pain, you're in a lot of discomfort, life will keep in that direction. But if you find a way to elevate that mood, then life, you give yourself an opportunity, like we talked about before, that belief systems, I can or I can. When you deliver the thing like, oh, I can heal from spirit. Spirit can show me the way to maybe not get rid of this, but live a more enjoyable life. Because maybe there are some things within the body where it just really just decayed or torn down or whatever. It's still possible for recovery, but maybe to the point where you really can't recover the body as much as you would like. Because I saw for myself that I healed at pivotal time because my MS was in a decline. I saw a permanent wheelchair was coming in my future rather quickly. So I was able to catch that right in time before the body declined to that point. Because once you get into the wheelchair, you start having that atrophy and the muscles and stuff,
Yeah.
then it becomes even more of a challenge. But who knows? Everything is possible if you're willing to have that patience with yourself and let go of all criticism and judgment of self.
Yep.
That's really one of the biggest keys that I've seen is removing all judgment and all criticism because we have to understand that our skill levels are where they are in this moment. And the mind will always look back and say, oh, you could do better. It's like, no, at that particular point, you were doing the best you could at
Yeah.
that point. So the mind always wants to look back. It's like, no, you let go of all judgment, all criticism, because that judgment and criticism will keep that things in place. And I see people with autoimmune disease where the body is attacking itself. I had three of them. And what's happening when you're judging and criticizing yourself? You're poisoning your own inner environment. You're triggering autoimmune diseases. So you need
Yeah.
to change that mood. And there's many components to autoimmune disease, but one of them is our inner environment. If you change that inner environment, then that's one less thing for the autoimmune to cling on to. And I see autoimmune turn around when the judgment and the criticism stops. And you just say, nope, my skill levels are where they are. Ignore the mind. It's not your source of truth.
Wow. So, after all those years of being sick, what surprised you the most about being healthy?
Just feels so surreal that I was sick for so long. It's like, wow, I can actually, and it can enjoy life. I was talking to one of my students. He said, I was actually able to stand up from my whole shower. I was like, that's beautiful because I know when I had MS, I had a
Yeah.
shower seat. I couldn't stand for a shower. And now I hear from my student, she's like, yeah, I was able to stand for my whole shower.
Wow. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Just
So,
these little things we take for granted that we are
yeah,
able to do now that we forget. Like at one point in my life, I couldn't go get myself a glass of water. I couldn't stand for a shower.
yeah,
All these
yeah.
little things that we take for granted, and just to do those things is a beautiful thing.
So, what would you say to someone who's listening right now and who might be feeling trapped by their own diagnosis?
Yeah, if they're feeling trapped, then reach out. Beyond Head Trash is my site, but I'm all over social media. I have hundreds of videos. I have my, Vibrant Soul Society Inner Healer School. There are resources out there that will show you a different way forward. And it doesn't have to be a long time. I have videos out there, 60 seconds to inner peace. We only need a minute to come back to who we are. And it's just a matter of just like slowing down, stop reacting and learn to respond and to become present. And if you'll know what present is to realize that you're listening right now, that you're sitting, that your feet on the floor. That's present, that we're either lost in our thoughts or we're fully here. And once you become fully here, then you're aligned with your spirit, your soul, because your spirit, your soul is always in this moment. And anytime you're lost in thoughts, you're in a way, you're disconnecting from yourself and your own wisdom,
Mm.
your own truth.
Anything else you want to say before
Yeah.
we close up?
Yeah, just to the best thing you can really do for you is just to relax, to stop believing all those stories as your truth. Ultimately, the deeper truth is within you. It's not outside of you. And it's just a matter of learning to go within and to realize I had a very simple practice. I feel doing practices for 1 or 2 minutes. And that's all it requires is just putting those gaps in the thought stream, just little gaps in the thought stream, and more peace will come because they have done a lot of studies that 30 days of meditation makes dramatic changes within the body. 30
Wow,
days. And it could be a very simple 1 to 2 minutes of presence, and your blood markers will be different in a month.
that's great. Thank you so much. Baba Sam's journey, my friends, reminds us that sometimes the greatest battles we face aren't just with our bodies, but with the stories that we tell ourselves. For nearly 4 decades, he lived with the shadow of what medicine called incurable, and yet he found a way, not through science alone, but through something quieter, deeper, and profoundly personal. If you want to learn more from Baba Sam, visit his website at beyondheadtrash.com, a place where healing begins with the mind and the heart. And if you'd like to explore your own path, you can find me at mediumscottallen.com. There you can book a private reading, dive into my work, and even grab a copy of my book, In the Presence of Light. For those who love the mysterious and unexplained, catch me on Dark Echoes Paranormal, streaming now on Amazon Video and Paraflix, and coming soon to Apple TV. Thank you for joining us on the Enlightened Life podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself, because sometimes the story isn't over, it's just beginning. We'll see you next time.